I never imagined that simply asking for a little room to breathe could feel like the start of the end. My name is Clara, I'm 34. And I thought I was married to someone who valued patience, compromise, and love. My husband, Ethan, 36, had always been a little intense, perfectionistic at work and sometimes overly controlling at home. Yet, I trusted in the man I married. At least, I thought I did. Our marriage wasn't flawless. Nothing ever is. But we shared dreams, long late-night conversations, and laughter that could brighten the dullest of days. I admired his discipline, even when it was frustrating, and he thrived on routines I sometimes found rigid. But over the past several months, a new feeling had begun to creep in. One I hadn't experienced before: suffocation. It wasn't that Ethan didn't care. He cared too much. About schedules, chores, trivial decisions, everything. And in the way he cared, there was no space left for me. I tried to hint at it at first. Ethan, I think I need a little time to myself. Maybe meet friends, or take a walk alone, I'd say cautiously, testing the waters. He would nod, smile, even agree. But the next day, he'd hover, question, check in, expecting me to remain as available as ever. It felt like living under a microscope I hadn't agreed to. The tension didn't erupt in arguments. There were no shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations, just a quiet pressure that grew heavier each day. Eventually, I decided to speak plainly. Ethan, I need some space. A few days apart, just to think, just to breathe. My hands trembled. My heart raced, not out of fear, but uncertainty. I didn't know how he would take these words. His reaction was immediate and colder than I had anticipated. Space? He asked, raising his eyebrows, voice steady but cutting. You mean, like a separation? I hurried to clarify. No, not a separation. Just a short break. I need to step back and clear my mind. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. Instead, he said 4 words I'll never forget. I want a divorce. At first, I laughed nervously, thinking it must be a cruel joke. After 10 years of marriage, shared memories, promises, could he truly mean it? But the look in his eyes told me everything. There was no jest, no hesitation, only a calm certainty, as if this had been decided long ago, waiting only for me to ask for space to confirm it. The hours that followed felt surreal. He spoke in a quiet, methodical way, explaining his reasons. Not anger, not bitterness, just conviction. Clara, he said, I've been unhappy for a long time. I've tried to compromise, but your asking for space only confirms what I've felt for months. We want different lives. I don't see a future with you. I tried to protest, to remind him of the nights we stayed up talking, the birthdays we celebrated, the small ways we had always been there for each other. But nothing moved him. Not an inch. I sat on the couch, gripping the cushion so tightly my nails cut into my skin, overwhelmed by the sudden weight of a love that had turned to logic, a connection that felt erased in an instant. That night, I packed a small bag, my laptop, a few clothes, my charger, and left. I couldn't stay in a house where every corner held the echo of the last 10 years. I went to my friend Sophie's apartment, hoping the comfort of her smile and a warm cup of tea would ease the shock. But nothing could fill the emptiness inside. I replayed every conversation, every decision, every quiet moment that had brought us here. How could asking for a little space, something so natural, have led to this irrevocable end? How had love, once soft and reassuring, become so cold and sharp? By morning, I realized something else. I didn't know him anymore. Not the man I married. Not the man who had promised to share a life with me. He had become a stranger, choosing certainty over connection, speed over patience. The thought of never seeing him again, never hearing his voice, never laughing at our private jokes, made my chest ache in ways I couldn't describe. The days that followed felt unreal. Every phone notification made my heart leap, hoping for a message, a call, some sign he had reconsidered. But there was nothing. And slowly, I realized that the silence, though painful, was also liberating. I spent the first week at Sophie's, talking for hours, trying to make sense of the new reality that had been thrust upon me. I spent days crying, pacing, and sometimes just sitting quietly with my thoughts. For the first time in years, I could breathe without worrying about his schedule, his expectations, or how he might react. It felt strange, almost foreign, to exist without the constant tension hanging over me. And as I settled into that stillness, I began to remember something important. I had my own life, my own choices, my own needs, things I had long ignored. It wasn't instant happiness, and it wasn't neat or tidy. There were moments when I felt like a part of me had been torn away, when I passed the bedroom we shared or opened drawers filled with memories of us. But even in the grief, there was a lesson about boundaries, self-respect, and the understanding that love isn't just about giving, it's about mutual care. One afternoon, I went for a long walk in the nearby park. The sun was warm, birds were singing, and families laughed in the distance. I noticed couples holding hands, children chasing bubbles, and somewhere in the ordinary scene, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. Not excitement, not joy, not love, just peace. The kind that comes from finally letting go of something that wasn't right. A couple of weeks later, I saw him. Or rather, I noticed him across the street while walking home from work. Ethan, in a crisp navy jacket, his hair neatly combed, looking like the man I thought I knew. My chest tightened, my throat went dry, and all the old emotions threatened to overwhelm me. But as I passed by, I realized something remarkable. I didn't feel panic or desperation. I didn't need to justify myself, explain, or plead for understanding. I simply felt calm, stronger than before. I lifted my head, smiled faintly, and kept walking. He saw me, nodded slightly, and went on his way. No confrontation, no drama, no lingering tension. Just two people who had shared years together but were no longer walking the same path. That moment made everything clear. Closure doesn't always come from words. Sometimes it comes from action, walking away with dignity, from being fully present in your own life without waiting for someone else's approval. I had asked for space, and though it cost me my marriage, it gave me something I hadn't realized I'd lost: myself. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I reconnected with old friends, joined a book club, and began painting again, a hobby I had abandoned because we were always too busy with each other. Every brushstroke, every late-night conversation, every laugh with Sophie felt like reclaiming pieces of my soul that had quietly shrunk under the weight of someone else's control. It wasn't perfect, and some nights still stung with loss, but I discovered something profound. No one else could give me my happiness, my peace, or my sense of self. Those had to come from within. Once I claimed them, I realized I was no longer afraid of silence, emptiness, or being alone. In fact, I welcomed it, because in that space, there was room to grow. Months later, I look back on the day I asked for space with clarity. It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice, a necessary one. I didn't see him again, and I didn't need to. He was a chapter in my story, but not the ending. And for the first time in a long while, I was writing the next pages on my own terms. I often think about how our marriage ended quietly, without shouting or confrontation. Some might call it tragic, but I don't. It was a beginning, disguised as an ending. And every morning, when I take a deep breath, I feel it. The quiet strength that comes from choosing yourself, even when it means letting go of someone you once loved. I don't worry about what Ethan will do or whether he'll reflect on his choices. My focus is on my life, the love I give myself, and the boundaries I uphold. Asking for space isn't weakness. Walking away when your needs are ignored isn't failure, it's strength. And sometimes, that strength is everything.